And hello again, everyone. Welcome to 7 Days to Sunday, sponsored by FanDuel, or maybe in this case this week, it should be 4 days to Sunday as the Buffalo Bills get ready to take on the Houston Texans, of course, as we recap an exciting win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There you go. I had amnesia there for a second as I welcome in my guy, of course, Tulsa Hall of Famer, former Bills standout offensive lineman, my tag team partner on the show, Mr. Jerry Ostroski. What's going on tonight, my friend?
Not much, Zig, man. Running hot. Got a lot going on. Just happy to be on the internets with you, getting ready to talk a little Buffalo Bills football, as we always do every week here on Wednesday nights. And I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good show. Good week. Much better to talk about victories than losses, of course.
Of course.
So that's good. But I'd much rather not be talking about a Thursday night game. But hey, you got to take what you get, right?
Absolutely, and this is their furthest road trip of the season, and it'll be against the top defense in the NFL with the Houston Texans and all the people that they have on that side of the ball. But the game on Sunday, I don't know if the defensive coordinators on either side loved it, but I know the fans did. I'm sure a lot of the media did. And Jerry, if you're thinking Josh Allen, we all know how valuable he is. Well, now, second time in his career, 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns rushing. Maybe it was the return of Gabe Davis, bringing McCole Hardman in, Josh Palmer coming back, whatever it was, that passing game looked an awful lot better.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen explosives out of Josh Allen like that in quite some time, and not just with the passing, but with his feet. And I even thought some, even like the Terrell Shavers in a touchdown was set up by Josh moving in the pocket, making plays with his feet. It was good to see. Now, I think sometimes we gravitate, Zig, to ideas where like Joe Brady opened it up this week because Gabe Davis was back and Josh Palmer was back.
Right.
Now, their presence was felt, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes game script really has a lot to do with what's going on. And when you watch that game this past weekend, it was almost like the two teams flip scripts. Tampa Bay was doing what the Bills have been doing this season, controlling the line of scrimmage, running the football, playing that complementary style of football. And then the Bills come out and all of a sudden turn into the greatest show on turf. And, it was something you didn't expect, but it was good to see. It was needed. And now I guess the $1 million question is, do you continue to do that? Throw everything out the window that you've been doing for the last so many weeks and just let Josh Allen run wild? Or do you stay true to what you want to do? I would say probably, Zig, the answer is a happy medium, right? You got to go somewhere in the middle. But it will be interesting to see how the Bills progress this week in Houston.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not sure Josh Allen puts up 6 touchdowns against that vaunted Texans defense, but it was good to see. Obviously, there was flow in that pass game. And by the way, I had the chance to catch up with Tyrell Shavers, the former.
Awesome.
Yeah, he caught up with him after the game. He went to Bama. Then I believe it was, Mississippi State. And then he wound up at San Diego State. And that's where I think he started to make some of his inroads here, Jerry. And that's a guy that I'm wondering, after his performance, why did it take so long into the season to realize, hey, this kid's got some size, speed, pretty darn good hands. And he even told me after on SiriusXM NFL Radio, he says, I just wait for my opportunity. And when it came, I seized it. And that was that.
I think a big part of it has to do with the presence of Gabe Davis and the presence of Joshua Palmer. They were doing things in the passing game. And let's not get crazy, okay? It's not like both these guys show up and all of a sudden we've got this 4-2, 4-3 burner down the field like we've been trying to get. Everybody wanted to trade for Raheed Shaheed and, we need this vertical presence. You can get vertically downfield and make plays without having to be super, super fast. We all know Josh Palmer is so prolific in route running. I mean, he's one of the best route runners in the league, so smooth, is able to get leverage with his route running, get out of breaks and that. Gabe Davis, while not necessarily a athletically dynamic receiver, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to run a ton of short stuff like Shakir does. He's kind of limited in his route tree because he's a little bit stiff in the hips. The thing that Gabe's always done really well is be able to body up cornerbacks. And I think it's something that we were hoping to see out of Keon Coleman Same kind of style where, you know what, maybe you're not a guy that can shake and get separation with your quick, your athleticism, but your physical size and the way you can body up cornerbacks, maybe get separation that way. He hasn't quite got a grasp of that yet. Gabe is a master at that. Like his couple of catches that he had, you see him, he'll run his route to the inside shoulder or the corner, so that when he makes his break, he puts that corner on his back,
right
between the ball. And just he's got an ability to get separation with the way he plays physically as a receiver. It was good to see. And then then you got Shavers out there doing what he's doing. All of a sudden he becomes a forgotten man and just gets in the flow of things and, ends up being the leading receiver.
7 days to Sunday continues, sponsored by FanDuel, Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. And we did mention the name Keon Coleman, but it was quite notable here, Jerry, that he did not play in this game. Some issues came up apparently during the week, although what McDermott actually said that he had a good week of practice. But it starts to make you wonder, like if they force this draft pick, like we need this guy so bad, and some of the things you even heard before the draft that maybe this just wasn't going to be a good fit. And even though Dion came on after the game or said the other day that, Keon needs to grow up here. In the locker room, if you've got a guy that's immature, when do you draw the line, like either grow up, straighten up, or get the you-know-what out of here?
Well, I think the biggest thing with that situation, Zig, is what age are these players? What part of his career is he in?
Right.
You look at Keon, he's a second-year guy. He's still young. He was young coming out in the draft. So if, age-wise, he's young as well, not just experience. And at some point in time, you need that tough love, but you don't want to go overboard. It's not like you're trying to get 52 guys in the locker room to be against this kid. But a guy like Dion that brings a lot of clout, Josh Allen could be that player. And I think Josh probably does it in a different way, probably does it more privately and between, one-on-one. He's not much of a public shaming guy. And some of those other guys in the locker room that have been vets, yeah, by all means, say something. And I was happy to see that Dion said something. But I think in Keon's case, a lot of times, Zig, it's hard for young players to come to grasps with all the things they did well in college. Now it's a lot harder to do in the league.
Exactly.
And when you're not having the success you want and you've got a fan base that's on your back, where do you go with, are you a finger pointer or are you a thumb pointer? Right. Do you blame others for your lack of development, or do you have an honest conversation with yourself and say, you know what, I need to do these things differently. I need to work on these things to try to become better. And I think that's what's hard for some of these young guys. They've never been in this situation. It's always been easy. They've always been the top dog. And now all of a sudden, I just can't run a route the way I want to run it because I'll get open. You have to be precise with what you do. You have to have technique. And I think that's where the story of Terrell Shavers comes in here in this whole scenario. All he's done is show up and work. He's kept his mouth shut. He's been appreciative of his opportunity, and he continues to work and get better. And, the one thing that I don't want to happen in Buffalo is all of a sudden, Bill's Mafia and the fan base, they have this campaign against Keon Coleman like he's a terrible person.
Right.
I played with guys for a long time that played really good football and made Pro Bowls and made a whole heck of a lot of money, and at some point in time will probably be considered for the Hall of Fame, that in their first couple of years, they got called in the office because they had issues with being on time and things like that. So, this isn't something that's new to the game. I mean, it's happened before. And I did find it interesting, if you watched the game last night, Zig, but CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens were also benched for the first couple series of the game for a disciplinary issue.
Yep.
And it is interesting that there is a connection because CeeDee Lamb and Keon Coleman are cousins. So I don't know. Maybe
That's right.
Maybe they were on the phone together talking about technique one day, and whoops, I was late to a meeting, right? I don't know. But, all kidding aside, it's just part of it sometimes. Some guys get a little bit easier than others, but I just don't want everybody to get down on this kid like he's now a problem. This is part of the process. It's part of building yourself up to what you want to be, and hopefully he takes the steps he needs to take to be that player.
And by the way, gutty effort by the Cowboys Monday night, albeit against the Raiders, but still, when you're trying to get over, what is it? We won't move on, but we'll move forward, according to Brian Schottenheimer after the untimely death of Marshawn Nealand, and the Cowboys did respond in style on Monday night with that big win over the Raiders.
Yeah, Cowboys are close. I think if they can find a way to keep Pickens on the team and help that defense,
and
they're
that
close.
defense is revised now, man.
Yeah,
They look good. They
still need some other players, especially a linebacker, but they got a chance if they can keep Pickens and bolster that defense in the offseason. It's starting to look like maybe that crazy Jerry Jones's decision to let Micah Parsons go might have actually been the best decision for that franchise.
Yeah, and especially saving some money along the way too, and adding some draft picks as well. Back to this game Sunday, and I know we're going to move on, obviously, to take on the Texans, but kind of appropriate here, Jerry. 44 seemed to be an appropriate number. Well, first of all, that's how many points the Bills had, but then on the other side, number 44 on Tampa, who, by the way, is a Syracuse grad, the young man Sean Tucker, wore that number like it was Jim Brown or Floyd Little, the way he ran the ball on Sunday. 3 total touchdowns. Again, lather, rinse, repeat. The run defense is an issue.
It's just really hard for the Bills right now. And again, this isn't a schematic issue. It's a personnel issue. And the amount of injuries they have on the inside of that defense, and then some of their core players that they've relied on for quite some time are older and having injury issues, like Taron Johnson. Terrell Bernard is dragging the leg around. I do want to say this because I've been hard on Terrell Bernard some this season. I thought he had his best game of the year this weekend. I thought he was much more willing to stick his face inside in the run game. He was tremendous in space, made a lot of plays outside the hash marks, outside the numbers. I thought he had a very, very good game this weekend. So I wanted to make sure we brought that to light, considering that he's kind of been one of, public enemy number one for the last so many weeks. Milano still struggles a little bit, but he's playing one-armed. I mean, he's got a torn pec, and he's gutting through it. But, the Bills' defense, Zig, we've talked about it on this show before. If they could put everybody out there that they have healthy, it'd be a much different group. It really would. But right now inside, especially at the defensive tackle positions, they're just struggling right now with attrition. And then, you take TJ Sanders off the IR. He's been on the IR for about 6 weeks with his knee. He comes back. He doesn't get 1 rep at defensive tackle. He plays 19 reps at defensive end. He didn't play defensive end all year long, and he's got to play defensive end. So I think people need to be cognizant of just what this defensive staff has to put together, every week to try to go out and be successful. But I will say this about the defense. They had some big opportunities in this game, and they came through. The Josh Allen interception, they stop him and hold him to 3. That was huge.
That was big.
The Cole Bishop interception was huge. Getting them off the field to start, in the second half like that was huge. I mean, they did some good things, and were able to limit the damage as much as they could. But yeah, they're gonna have to get healthy quick because another big opportunity on Thursday night.
Speaking of big opportunity, I've got a big appetite right now. What do you think?
I'll tell you what, I do too, Zig, and that can mean one and only one thing, and that is the proud sponsor of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, the Anchor Bar, the home of the original Buffalo Wing. Frank and Teresa Bellissimo started the Anchor Bar, invented the Buffalo Wing in 1964. Jumbo wings, always fresh, never frozen. Get them to your liking as far as sauces. They have multiple choices as far as sauces go. And if you're not in the mood for wings, they've got things like beef on weck and wraps and pizzas and salads. Everything else for anybody that is in the mood for something, they've got it at the Anchor Bar. And now if you're not in Buffalo and you're out and about across the country, I think there's 17 different locations. Raleigh has one. I know that Tucson, Arizona has one. And if you go there, you'll probably see Fina. He's there quite a bit. Also down in Frisco, Texas. So lots of opportunities across the country to check out the Anchor Bar and their delicious buffalo wings. And like I said, if you don't go to the one in the original in Buffalo, or you don't go to one of the franchises across the country, you can also get online and order sauces and things like that,
Nice.
and wings. They'll ship them right to the house. So the Anchor Bar, home of the original Buffalo Wing, proud sponsor of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we love them. We appreciate them. And when you get an opportunity, check out that original Buffalo Wing at the Anchor Bar.
By the way, did you ever do all three of what's pictured there in one sitting?
I have, yes.
Okay, good.
Here's a little secret, okay? Everybody thinks the big dude is the dude that eats everything.
Right.
When we go out and about, Fina's the one that can pack the food away. So
is that right? Wow.
Usually it's wings. Usually there's a beef on weck or two that you share with everybody else. There's a pizza. Got to make sure it's the cupped pepperoni so all the grease stays in the cup.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So Fina's the one that can he's the one that puts a hurting on the grocery, so to speak.
There you go. I was surprised, too, because he's slender, let's say, even though he was a lineman at one time, So,
well, the other thing about John that most don't know, and I'm telling on him, so he'll probably be mad at me, but he's a very accomplished cook, man. The man can
is he really
cook some food? Yes,
nice.
He's very, very well versed around the kitchen. So
nice.
Always good to go to the Fina house because you're going to get a good meal.
Yeah, and actually, I'll have the pleasure of working with John post game Thursday night here with Overreaction Buffalo as part of the coverage against the Houston Texans as we continue with 7 days to Sunday, sponsored by FanDuel, Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. Usually it's Houston. We have a problem, but they've been inflicting some problems on other teams as of late. Looked like they were dead and buried just a few weeks ago, but amazingly, Davis Mills has done an efficient job coming in for the concussed C.J. Stroud, who is feeling better, which is a good thing, but he will not play Thursday night. I believe Petrie is also, the outstanding safety, has also been ruled out. But, Jerry, this is the furthest trip Buffalo goes on this year, and against that defense, it may be Buffalo has a problem because they are stacked.
Exactly. FanDuel has this game as the Bills laying 6 points. FanDuel over-under is 43.5. But, yeah, I mean, this is an important game for both teams. Houston, it's a swing game for them, between 6 and 5 and a playoff push and 5 and 6 and an uphill climb. And Buffalo, they're trying to keep pressure on New England for the AFC East title and then staying in that wild card mix. So a lot on the line for both teams. And as you said, C.J. Stroud, not playing because of the concussion, but Davis Mills, I think it was 2021 or 22 quarterback from Stanford, has done a great job. 726 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception. So he's been very efficient. And you have to think, Zig, like you've talked about, this is a Texans defense that is absolutely legit and elite. And they took advantage of drafting when they did. They've got some great players, and of course DeMeco Ryans, the former defensive coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers, is their head coach, so they're going to build. He's going to build a great defense, but this is a defense that can attack you from the front. Will Anderson is just a wrecking ball up front for them, and then also they run a ton of simulated pressures and everything else to try to get to the quarterback. So that offensive line of the Bills and just Josh Allen in general and his awareness of protection schemes are going to have to be on point Thursday night against Houston.
Yeah, let's not forget DeMeco was a hell of a player in his own right when he was with the Texans during the time J.J. Watt and them were down there as they started to build up that franchise. Is there a better pair of ends in the game than Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter? I'm not sure there is.
I don't think so. I mean, you've got guys, like Myles Garrett and things like that are single type guys. And I guess you could say Philadelphia is maybe moving in that direction with the Jalen Phillips.
Parsons and Gary in Green Bay, maybe.
Yeah, maybe there. But I don't think anybody brings heat like those two do. I think it was a great point, Zig. Tremendous tandem. It's one of those defenses where you can't relax. Even if you break out and get through the first level, they've got so much speed and so much athleticism. They're going to be coming at you from all angles. Even then, trying to get the ball out, punch. They do a great job of punching the ball out when somebody stands a ball carrier up. Just a really formidable front for Houston. hopefully this Bills and again, this is going to be a game script kind of thing. You gotta hope the defense can shore up a little bit or enough to get more possessions for Josh Allen, and then you got to hope that Josh Allen can do some of the things that he did this week in the explosive play side.
And then, of course, their corners, Stingley, top 5 guy as far as I'm concerned, and Kamari Lassiter, a kid got out of Georgia a few years ago, looks very, very good. The linebackers are solid. I had a chance to chat with EJ Speed after the game. There was a guy that, when he went from Indy to Houston, didn't seem like that big a deal, but I'm like, they're getting some good leadership, good production. He was one of their leading tacklers Sunday. So this defense extremely well coached. So now you go against this quality defense, Jerry. You're on a short week. You really don't game plan per se. How do the Bills approach this Thursday night in Houston?
I think you'd lead into a great zig, and we talked a little bit about it earlier in the show about this whole concept of, there's a big push for who cares if Josh throws 2 picks, as long as he can have explosives like he has. Let's take the training wheels off. Let's take the governor off. Let's let him just go crazy. And in theory, that's great, but in reality, it's probably
too much to ask.
What you want to do is, you hope that Josh can get those explosives, but you don't want to rely on him to win games week after week. You got to continue to do things that you do well. And I think the first key to this game, Zig, is, the Bills are going to have to find a way against the number 1 rush defense in the league to run the football somewhat effectively. How that happens, I don't know. They've kind of had teams the last 2 to 3 weeks, I guess, ever since the Carolina game, when they came out and they kind of brought that pitch play out. They've tried to really
do that again. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think teams have taken that away, and they're going to have to change up a little bit inside and maybe get more downhill and more north-south, continue to rely on some gap schemes and gap runs like power and counter and those types of things. They're not a counter team, but they do run a ton of power. Also, they'll run some dart stuff, which is a single tackle pool. But they've got to figure out. I know that everybody wants this crazy explosive pass game, and if you run the ball effectively, you can get that, especially against the Houston team, and you hope to be able to run the ball to where they have to stack the box, get some guys out of the defensive secondary, and open up some things that way.
Do short passes constitute runs?
I think in this offense they definitely do. I think Joe Brady relies on them quite a bit. The keys in the short pass situation with Buffalo is, up until this week when Gabe Davis and Josh Palmer came back, there wasn't a lot of room in the middle of the field. So you could get some passes caught, but it was going to take a Herculean effort by Shakir to shake about 5 guys and get upfield and do the things that he does. Last week, I thought it was highly noticeable. Some of it might have been the way that Tampa was playing, but I do think a lot of it had to do with the receivers outside. There was a lot more room in the middle of the field. So hopefully that trend continues, which will make that short passing game, an option, and it'll continue to evolve, hopefully, with the tailbacks continuing to be a piece of that like they were last week.
Another key is?
I think you really got to look at explosive plays. I think both secondaries, even with a rotation with Trey White and Maxwell Hairston, the Bills secondary maybe not quite as top tier as Houston's. I think both secondaries are, Buffalo's is playing better week after week, especially with Cole Bishop and the way he's playing. And then Jordan Poyer's really solidified some things back there. He had 15 tackles last week.
Wow.
And you don't want to see that.
No.
Now, granted, it's because, 44 was untouched through the line of scrimmage, and then Jordan was coming in, helping out and cleaning stuff up. But still, he solidified that back end quite a bit. But somehow, some way, Buffalo's going to have to try to limit the explosives, but also manufacture some explosives. I would have to think again, if we do get in the situation where Josh is he's able to do that, it's probably he moves with his feet first and then gets downhill in the scramble drill and things like that. But, you're going to have to get some explosive plays against this tough defense, and you're going to have to limit them because, you can't get a defense like Houston out of what they want to do unless you force them. And that
Absolutely.
run, having a successful run game and doing some explosive plays can do that.
Key number 3.
I think that you look at I think it's something you look at every week, but this week I think it really comes to light and
resonates.
Resonates, which would be turnover margin.
Yes.
You got to limit turnovers. You got to get those explosives, but you got to limit turnovers. But the biggest thing is, one thing that Houston's defense does is, by being so strong and shutting down opposing offenses, they get that Houston offense with Mills as quarterback extra possessions.
Yes.
Right. And more so than field position in football nowadays, extra possessions are so important. So you've got to limit the turnovers, and you got to find a way to keep Mills off the field to where he has limited opportunities to score. I think that's a big thing this week, is the Bills have to try to get that ball taken away, but they also have to limit turnovers themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Bills' pass rush is going to have to do some damage too, because that, to me, is the weak link of Houston, is that offensive line. They've spent a ton of money there. In fact, I think they had the most guaranteed money as of last year. Then they moved on from Tunsil. They've moved Titus Howard around. They've had some injuries at center and that kind of thing. So I think that's going to be big. And guy that you're quite familiar with, being in Oklahoma there, Woody Marks has really come on as a rookie player for them.
Yeah, he has. And like I said, I mean, I think the Texans are a good football team, and this is a tough task. I don't think anybody understands, even with the performance that the Bills had against Tampa Bay. If this game was played on Sunday at 4:15, it would still be equally as hard, in my estimation. When I looked at the schedule, this was one of the iffy ones I circled.
Yeah,
I thought this would be a tough game, and the Bills have had some losses down there. They haven't played well against Houston. Now you're adding a short week, and a team that's beat up, has a bunch of guys on the injury list. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very, very tough task for the Bills. But you know what? Like I said, there's a clear kind of a game shape or game script with this game, and that's and I know fans don't want to hear it, but that's imposing the run early. Trying to get those Houston safeties to creep into the middle of it, hit those explosives when you can, because the Texans are going to try to get off the field on third down on defense to get Mills extra possessions, and hopefully in their case get Mills to hit enough third down throws, and occasional shots to stay in it and be able to handle that Bills team.
And of course, people watching wherever they may be around the country or whatever, the game is on Prime. So if you're, I believe, in the Buffalo and the Houston markets, it'll be on over-the-air television. Everywhere else, Jerry, you got to find it on the app. So.
Yeah, I've got the app on my computer.
I
got
too.
the app on my TV. So
yep.
I usually watch these games, especially Sunday games. I'll watch them in the office. I'll have Red Zone on one screen. I'll have the other game, the Bills game, on the other screen. And since it won't be Red Zone on Thursday night, we'll put the stat page up and we'll follow Gamecast while it's going on and just try to take in as much information as I can while watching the game.
7 Days to Sunday continues, sponsored by FanDuel with Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. Quick whirl around the AFC East, and Jets played the Patriots, I thought, pretty tough the other night after all the changes they made. They actually took the lead early. Patriots never really pulled away, but it was sort of a good enough win for them, Jerry, 8 in a row to maintain their lead in the East.
Yeah, and they made the move this week. They've already announced that Tyrod Taylor is going to start at quarterback, and I honestly didn't understand why I didn't play this past Thursday. I felt that there was a lot of plays to be made. I thought Tyrod would have made a lot of the ones that were there and maybe stressed the Patriots a little bit more. Obviously, at the end, Patriots were too much for the Jets, but it was interesting with the removal of Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams from that roster. They played better football. And I think that's part of what Aaron Glenn's trying to get to. Right. He's not a me guy. He's a team guy, and that's what he wants to see. And whether it was, warranted or not, that sent a message across the franchise, across the team, and they're rebuilding, aiming to get better. So, yeah, they put up a good fight, but Patriots just too much for them.
Yeah, and playing extremely well. Meanwhile, they did the first ever regular season game down in Spain, and I could just hear fans down in Miami here, Jerry. You're supposed to lose. We want top picks. But tell that to Mike McDaniel and
Yeah.
company. And there's a few people that actually think now that Miami can somehow make a run at a wild card spot. I'm not one of them, but they have played some inspired ball the last couple of weeks.
Exactly. I think which followed what, Zig?
Win against Buffalo.
Yeah, win against Buffalo, but it followed the general manager getting fired.
Right.
It followed
Trade your
Phillips
best.
getting traded.
Right.
Again, a message was sent. They thought enough about Mike McDaniel, and obviously, Mike McDaniel still has control of that locker room, so to speak. And yeah, I think that they're playing good football. They're not making the mistakes. They seem locked in. They seem rejuvenated and have motivation to play. And they've got that. I'm like you. I don't see Miami getting into the playoffs, but there is that little carrot that's kind of dangling out there for them, and it's something that they've got their eyes upon. And yeah, they're playing well. And this is a difficult league, and I don't care who you play week in and week out. Anybody can win in this league, and it doesn't shock me that Miami has been rejuvenated and playing better football.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that it's set up now, even though a team like Arizona struggled horribly as of late. Hell, Jacoby Brissett the other day set a record 47 completions in one game, but that was a little bit weird to see, setting a record. But they got beat by the Niners. Brock Purdy back, and how about them? The Niners, using duct tape and baling wire. Yet they're 7-4, and now they get Purdy back. So
yeah, and they've done a good job of building their roster, and their backups are very capable players. So they're not quite to the level of the Bills where they're pulling up guys off the practice squad weekly and then signing a lot of them to the active roster. But still, they are beat up. But they got some of the best. You remember they got some of the best guys in the league at their specific position.
McCaffrey, sure.
McCaffrey, they got Williams at tackle. I mean, they've got some very, very good players. So it doesn't shock me. George Kittle at tight end. So
sure.
Purdy back kind of settled things down. I thought Mac Jones did a hell of a job for him keeping it together until Brock Purdy got back. I think Mac Jones probably found himself a home for a while, unless he's going to go out and try to chase another starting quarterback spot. But no, I've always enjoyed the 49ers. I've always respected them quite a bit, and a lot of it has to do with Shanahan.
Absolutely. So I guess in summation, is this one of these scenarios, Jerry, where if you're the Bill or even the Texans for that matter, but you let it all hang out, knowing that you've got a mini bye, and then, just for laughs, you got Pittsburgh the following Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. So you just let it all hang out on Thursday night, or what?
Yeah, I think it's do or die time. You don't have time to save players. You don't have time to try things or get guys experience. I mean, it's go time. You're in the middle of a playoff fight, and it only takes a couple more losses, and all of a sudden you're on the outside looking in. And if the Bills have any chance, and they still have a chance, it's not a huge chance, but if they have that opportunity to win the AFC East, these are games they have to win, Zig. They've got to win them. They're must-win games. You can't continue to drop games and expect to win a division. So, if they can win these games and win this week, win at Pittsburgh, they got the Patriots coming up, and they can right that wrong real soon.
Sure.
And get themselves back in position to win the East. But yes, incredibly difficult matchup Thursday night will be. I'm really interested in this game. It'll be interesting to see how they do and line up against the Texans.
Exactly. And then hear about Kirk Herbstreit's dog, too, in the press box. So I'm sure there'll be a few stories and maybe Al referencing, well, that field goal pushed right, or it's not quite over yet. So he still has it, by the way. I love Al. So
yeah, Al's is a special play-by-play guy, a legend. Yeah, Herbie was an interesting choice for that job. I do think he does a heck of a job with college football.
I agree.
I think college football probably fits his style better, which is a very wordy style, because there is, I think, quite a bit more to talk about in college football than maybe the NFL because of the so many players and so many teams and so many stories. But yeah, it's good to hear Al, and I'll be ready to go, man. I'll be ready to watch it.
Looking forward to the game. Of course, working with you again next week. And again, I'll be with FINA post-game Thursday night.
Yep, exactly. And we've got some more shows coming up this week. Of course, we had On the Beat last night, and then we've got Dan Freddy and Joe is Mafia Bets.
Mafia Bets, sure.
And if you're into that stuff, you need to watch because Dan Freddy is dang good, and I think he's winning at about an 80% clip right now.
Woo.
Yeah, he is the master
Right.
he is the master of the prop bet. So if you're into those types of things and you want to learn some stuff, you need to watch Mafia Bets on Thursday night. And then of course we got the walkthrough with Anthony on Saturday. So a lot of good shows. On the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network.
7 days to Sunday, sponsored by FanDuel, Jerry and Zig. We're about out of time, aren't we?
Yep, we are. Again, Bills laying 6 points, brought to you by FanDuel. And we'll see how it goes, man. This is another must-win situation for the Bills, and let's hope they get it done.
You got it, my friend. So until next time, go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
See ya.
Feel the same day.